Hello and welcome back to the Gifted Podcast Olympic Special Series. If you're new here, in this special series, we are going to be joined by Olympians of past and present who will be sharing their experience of competing at the Olympics as we learn what it takes to live your life without fear and inhibitions and make your zindagi unlimited. And in that very spirit, this special series is brought to you by Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance, which perfectly embodies this very notion of a zindagi unlimited. In today's episode, I'm joined by another Olympian from India, Hakimuddin Habibullah. Hakim sir is a swimmer who competed at the Sydney Olympics in the 200-meter freestyle event. We talk about what sort of barriers he had to overcome to qualify for the Olympics and what it takes to compete at the Olympics and represent India, especially in a sport that's often lost in obscurity. We also talk about the Indian swimmers' performance in Tokyo so far. So let's dive right in. Welcome, Hakim sir, to the Gifted Podcast Olympic Special Series. We're really excited to have you today. How are you doing?
Doing well, Neeraj. Thank you for having me. Look forward to this podcast.
It's my pleasure, sir. Sir, it's very important to understand the athlete's journey and the athletes that are reaching to the Olympics. And to understand that, we have to understand where they started. So I was keen to know how you got started into swimming and what about swimming really resonated with you that, this could be the sport for you.
So, my introduction to the water was more an accident, and when I use the word accident, I've kind of given this context in a few examples earlier as well. But it's more where I had a classmate of mine in nursery when I was in school that ended up drowning. And that was one of the starting points where my parents thought that if I was introduced to the water, I would be safe. That was one of the starting points. While I was introduced to the water with that background and I started enjoying it, I was just going to a pool close to home, which was in a hotel, and I would just go and splash around and play. It was more about fun. It was not about learning to swim per se, the first couple of years. And it was only through that process because I was enjoying the water, I was having fun, and it was a lot of self exploration at that point. That two things began to happen that I guess many parents would love from their children. I would come hungry and ask for food, and rather than the parents running behind their child, and I would go to sleep well. So these two things were, that just motivated my parents to keep me connected with the water. And then only after a couple of years of free play and self exploration did I get the opportunity to then learn to swim and learn the techniques of the different strokes. So that happened, and then that was a progression. So once I learned that, and because I had started with the self exploration, I had the feel. My learning process happened faster, and subsequently, when I swam my first meet, I'll end up winning a medal. And my parents don't have any background in sport or swimming for that matter. So when I started winning, that basically became, the black hole I got sucked into, because when you win a medal, suddenly there is some level of attention, and people said I was probably talented and I should explore more. I came from a background with where we had very limited means, so we didn't have the opportunity to try out multiple sports. So, like I said, I was introduced to the water. I enjoyed it. My parents found certain good outcomes from it. I started winning some medals, and then that was it. In hindsight, yeah, for people, because a podcast or any of these sessions don't give a full context of the person. So I'm just 5 feet 6 inches tall with a foot size of 7.5. So when people normally think about Olympic swimmers, especially the kind of event that I swam, they would
Yeah.
anticipate someone who's 6'2", 6'3", or taller. And
Yeah.
so I had my limitations, and when I look back, I do question that while I do have the attitude and the potential approach to being among a world class athlete, but I do sometimes question if I was introduced to another sport that was more suitable to my body type, I may be an Olympic medalist. But that's going to be left in the ifs and buts. But swimming, yes, that's how my journey started.
Right. And from those early years of, like you mentioned, self exploration and also the sport having the intrigue of the child to, keep going back at it. From that to reaching the Sydney Olympics, what would you say were the highs and the lows over those years?
So, because like I mentioned earlier, my family did not have any background in sport. We just took it one competition at a time. The focus in the initial years that my academics was primary, and sport was only to the extent that it didn't impact the academics. So and keeping that in mind, I swam, kept progressing. For people who are familiar with swimming in particular, the age group has a 2 year. It's in brackets of 2 years. So
Yeah.
the years I was junior, initially I would not even get selected for the Karnataka team. The year I was senior, I would get selected, and I started winning a medal every alternate year. Then my big break happened when I was a junior, and then when I was 13 years old in a 13 and 14 age group, and I landed up making both the junior team for India as well as the senior team for India that year. So that was my breakout year when I was 13. But till then, I never really thought about the Olympics. The Olympics was still something that I had no mentors. I never knew anyone who went to the Olympics. We didn't have many role models in front of me, so that was a challenge, or that created a slight gap in what to look forward to. It was only much later, when I committed to competing in the senior level more consistently, that I, only in the last couple of years in lead up to the Tokyo Olympics in lead up to the Sydney Games, that I decided to give it a shot at the Olympics, and that required me to up my game. I was already national champion for 3 years,
Yeah.
but if I had to get to the Olympics, it was a very different, benchmark that I had to attain. So it happened only much later. And when you're talking about it, it's a journey. It's a long journey. In
Yeah.
that, it's about staying consistent. It's about managing. There were many situations where the easiest thing to do was to quit the sport and move on, since I was also doing well in my academics.
Yeah.
So it was tough choices. I was doing my engineering when I was also training for the Olympics. I was in my sixth semester of my electrical electronics engineering when I went to the Olympics. So I chosen a tougher route, but I knew that it my academics helped manage some of the lows.
Yeah.
So the highs, of course, are always good, but when the lows come in sport, and there are many as you move up the ladder, because you're never always going to keep improving, and you're not always going to keep winning. You're going to have to deal with injuries, and during all those times, it was good to have my academics balance things out and allow me to find that zone when I wanted to, whenever I trained in my sport.
Yeah. And coming specifically to the Sydney Olympics, what sort of goals did you set for yourself going into Sydney?
So for me, it's the Sydney Olympics, and like I said, I didn't have many Olympians ahead of me to kind
Yeah.
of really understand the whole process. So for me, it was about the end goal. If I put it in that way, the end goal was to make the team, was to
Yeah.
get to the Olympics, and that was the key focus. That led me to for the first time, I trained in the US for a few months. When I say a few months, I mean it's just 6 weeks, in fact. But at that point, we didn't have the means, and we had to really pull out a significant amount of our savings to just facilitate that journey. And so a few things that I put together literally at the last minute to facilitate and give myself the best chance to make it to the games. And when I and so the end goal was to make it, and when I made it to the Olympics, I was satisfied. And that's you have to understand that the context was a
Yeah.
very different time frame then, where we were nowhere on the world scene. So from that angle, so being at the Olympics, really enjoying the atmosphere, absorbing the learnings from there. And then you said, okay, you got to move on in life. Like I said, I was in Bangalore, a software. I mean, I was an engineer. Lots of things happening. I had good job offers after that. Moved on with my life till I chose to come back, but to change sport. But but that was the part for me. My journey to the Olympics was to make it at that point, and making it itself was a massive achievement at that point of time.
Yeah, totally. And like you mentioned, given the context of the sport for India, getting to the Olympics was a massive achievement in itself. But like you also mentioned that you finally came back to the sports ecosystem, and I've been following your work with Go Sports and Winning Matters, the two ventures, sports ventures that you have set up that are contributing back to the sports ecosystem. What are the aspirations behind starting these ventures?
So, like I said, I realized that I was not a product of a system. So I realized that there were a series of fortunate accidents that landed me at the right place at the right time. And I also believe that India's got phenomenal talent. That is far more talented than I am, and there is no reason why swimming and in many other sports we shouldn't be challenging for medals more consistently. That was the drive to come back. While I really enjoyed the work I was doing in the IT world and had a fantastic journey and opportunities ahead of me, but I had the opportunity with a few friends to come back and start making a difference in sport. We believed that good people needed to come back and start contributing in different ways towards building the larger ecosystem and thinking long term. So from day one, we realized that we had a task cut out. It was not going to be easy. And my parents, I remember when I spoke to them saying I wanted to come back into sport and do something. I remember we had many conversations that, where they encouraged me to, they said, you want to do anything, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to try out anything other than sport, we would be really happy to support you. But, think twice, think 10 times, sport in India way back in 2006 wasn't where it is today. And, it's been a journey. But like I said, I had to take a call. I had some good people around me that also gave me the confidence that, it was worth it giving it a shot. And it's been a journey, and and we know that, even though it sounds like 15 years down the road, we know that for where we need to be going, we're slowly getting there. And that keeps me motivated even today.
Yeah. And I think you're doing a fantastic job in fixing the problem that you face yourself, which is not having the right kind of support system around you or people who could guide you for the next step. And you're doing just that. And, knowing all the barriers that you have overcome to become an Olympian in swimming for India, and since then also empowering others to fulfill their goals through your ventures, what does it mean to you have a zindagi unlimited, a life without limitations, so to say?
Well, I think it's very satisfying when you see how your work is contributing in different ways. We've had the opportunity when we started at Go Sports, we worked with already established athletes, but in non-popular sports. When I say non-popular, I mean we're not talking about cricket. We chose consciously to focus on Olympic sports that got lesser visibility. And when we started working with them and started enabling their performances to the next level, that was tremendously satisfying. And then when we got into Winning Matters, where we moved, my journey moved from the micro level of the athlete and coach to the macro level of trying to work on creating a larger foundation of high performance. It was again interesting to see how we had to work behind the scenes. And it's always attractive for many to work with the top athletes, with the top stars, and it's easy to rip in their glory. But in Winning Matters, we had to choose a very different pathway where we had to look at a long term, building the foundation so that we can have a stronger pipeline in the future. But that meant we had to take the high performance, which we often attribute to the top end of the pyramid, we had to take it to the base of the pyramid,
Yeah.
and then work behind the scenes, which we continue doing, because only if those fundamentals are strong and we have a larger population that enjoys playing sport with the right skills, will we be able to have a bigger groundswell of high quality talent pushing for the top medals in the future. So
Yeah.
you see and it's good, and it's definitely satisfying seeing the impact of that work in different ways.
Right. And for the first time, we have three swimmers competing at the Olympics. What has been your view of the swimming as a sport, developing over the past 2 decades?
So the audience's context. is at the Olympic Games has the highest number of medals. When I say, let me again, swimming contributes to more than 10% of the gold medals at stake. They've got 35 medals in the pool, 37 when you include open water swimming that are related to swimming. Then you have aquatic sports where you've got diving, water polo, artistic swim added onto it. And when you put those medals together, we got 49 gold medals. And so when I started the journey, it was more focused around swimming. And we realized that strategically, if India aspired at any point to be amongst the top in the medal table, swimming would be a very important sport that needed attention. And so from day one of my journey back, it was a strategic decision by, you know, us as founders, me and my other partners, to work with swimming as a sport, as one of those sports. And it's been a consistent journey since. And then with Swimming Matters, when we created the brand Swimming Matters to focus only on, we said, okay, we set benchmarks saying how do we enable India in the top three? I mean, Indian swimmers to win Olympic gold medals on the top end, and but at the bottom end also enable a billion Indians to enjoy the water.
Yeah.
And when we started doing those things, we've been focusing, for example, on training of swim teachers because we realized that they were the critical stakeholder, not coaches. Because we often land up, talking about coaches, but coaches come a little later in the pathway. We need teachers first who set the fundamentals and make it fun. So these are things that we started working on. We've been able to make a pretty big difference already with the kind of people we've been able to attract into the domain to start thinking about teaching swimming as an attractive career as well. So we've had people with strong academic backgrounds and corporate backgrounds doing it part-time to begin with. We've had some quitting their jobs to do it full-time. That was one big change at the foundation level. And then, we started looking at the infrastructure change. So when we started making infrastructure change, we started changing the way people have ever looked at a pool from a water tank to a high performance asset, or for that matter, as a critical field of play, and as we're changing the quality of the infrastructure in swimming as well, we're contributing to making it comfortable for everyone to engage with the water. So these are steps along the pathway. And talking about the swimmers that have been, it's heartening to see that how many of the past Olympians and the current Olympians have been connected with many of these steps. So, when I was talking about the swim teaching, we've had 4 Olympians, be part of our program. One of them is the lead presenter. We've had, big names like Royal as well, going through the program to better understand the processes. And on the other end, when you look at, the 2 swimmers in Tokyo today, they, swam in lead up to the Tokyo Games and the qualification. They've been training at the swimming pool that was built by us. So when you start seeing how, as an engineer, the hardware and the software that you're putting together is coming in to support the development of the sport at multiple levels, it is very heartening to see. And for those who are following swimming, again, this was a massive breakthrough. What Srihari and Sarjan did to get the A qualifying times, which again is not at all an easy task. It is a fabulous effort and quite a historic one when you put the timings in perspective. So it's again.
Yeah, and I was also then keen to understand what have you made of the Indian swimmers' performance at Tokyo so far, knowing that they have performed terrifically well to qualify for the Olympics as well by dropping their times over a second in a year, which is pretty great.
So I think the swimmers have done fantastically well. I know all of us are, always, we would like more.
Yeah.
So for us, and I think it's not a bad thing to expect more, but it's only that we need to be a bit knowledgeable about our expectations as well.
Right.
So when we're looking at what both Sarjan and Srihari achieved, and Mana as well, because everyone due to the pandemic was compromised in their opportunities of access to appropriate training and competition. And so things went down literally to the wire, and all the 3 of them landed up with their best performances, within a month of the Olympic Games, just before the closing of the last date of qualifications. Now, for anyone who understands the technicalities, it's extremely difficult for elite athletes who both emotionally and physically are giving their 100% towards a particular objective, to come back to peak performance within a month. We've seen this now even with the Americans and the Australians who had their Olympic trials, in that 2 month range. We've seen, barring a few who were phenomenally ahead of everyone else and who
Yeah.
could, manage the trials and then peak at the Olympics. Many of the others were challenged.
Yep.
Many who, the qualification was the main goal, because even in a country like the US or Australia, there's, you can't think of a medal at the Olympics without qualifying for it.
Yeah.
So you have to be part of the team. And that's where, it's difficult. And both Srihari and Sajan, especially, a big shout out, because they both have done very well at these games,
Right.
keeping multiple factors in perspective.
Yeah. If you were their coach in Tokyo, what advice would you have given them before they got into the pool?
I mean, since it's a very hypothetical question, I would just say that, you know, just have fun, because that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
There's so much pressure that everyone is putting on themselves, or, or others are trying to put on you, that it's so easy to, you know, become a victim of it. So it's about going out there, just relax. You've done the hard work. Go ahead, enjoy the experience, and swim fast. I think every single one who's gone there wants to swim their best time. Everyone wants to give their 100%, and I'm sure they all give their 100%. But like I said, only for those who understand the details of the processes, you'll
Yeah.
appreciate that you don't always give your best. You give your best, but you don't always get your best time, or you may
Yeah.
not always win a medal, even if you give your
Right.
best time. So just this morning, we were chatting on we've been doing a Facebook Live celebrating swimming and we were just chatting about how Katie Ledecky, for example, one of the legends who's now won her third consecutive gold medal in the 800-meter freestyle and
Yeah.
is considered amongst the legends in swimming. She was, 8 seconds off her own world record in that
Yeah.
event. And that's a big margin. So while everyone would like her to break a record every time, world record every time she jumped in the water, it's not practical.
Yeah.
But she did enough to win the gold. And we need to understand and appreciate.
Right. And I think it's very intriguing to then understand the concept of peaking, especially for swimming, because it takes a lot out of the swimmer emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, every way to you know keep competing with that kind of a standard, not the competition that you're looking outside, but within yourself as.
So the process is also supported by the system that around you.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the Americans, you look at the Australians, they compete. They compete a lot, and the competition process is part of the training process, and that's how most athletes need to build. What you do in
Yeah.
training is definitely important. Till today, there are no gold medals at the Olympics for how hard you trained. So the medals are only for those who are able to perform when it matters and win those medals. So keeping that in mind, more competition is important, because only through that do you learn more about yourself. You can keep tweaking your approach, your strategy. You can keep, focusing more on yourself, because suddenly when you are in a space like this, it's easy to get distracted by what the person in the next lane is doing.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you have to keep training through competitions, so that you're able to keep finding yourself in the right position, and then when you go into these big meets, you're in a better position
Yeah.
to anticipate and manage things. Now, there's a process called tapering in swimming,
Yeah.
which means that you start reducing your load in lead up to a big meet. You shape
Yeah.
for your meet. You're paying attention to the details. It allows that extra energy in the body to be able to perform. Now, that itself is an art, and it
Yeah.
happens over, many, many years of trial and error to be able
Yeah.
to find what works. And mind you, what worked when you were 15 years old will not work when you are 24 years old.
Yeah.
For example, just to give that reference of Katie Ledecky again, she won the first gold when she was 15, and she's 24 now. So it requires the coach and the athlete to continuously keep paying attention to their body and how their bodies
Yeah.
are responding under various and then find what works for them and how they can adapt. Now, so one is in lead up to the event. Now, put things in context. The games like the Olympics and the World Championships are not your regular meets.
Yeah.
The Olympics this time is being held across 10 days, or 9 days. So across those 9 days, to keep your head down and have the peak performance across those 9 days
Yeah.
is another battle to do. And I feel, the Americans and the Australians have the advantage of just having been there and done that, and they have
Yeah.
and learning from their mistakes and others' mistakes to be able to give feedback. We are still far behind on that learning curve, and I feel it's one thing to still get closer to there. Now, even amongst those who are in contention for a medal, you got to swim a great heats, then
Yeah.
you got to swim a great semi-finals, and then you got to swim a great finals, and then touch the wall first. So we've seen many with lesser experience just falling short, doing well in the
Yeah.
heats, doing well in the semi-finals, falling short in the finals. So when we look at the bigger names, they clearly come with so much more experience, them through their own experiences and then the experience of the people around them
Yeah.
to help them anticipate and manage things.
Right. And like you mentioned, it is the pedigree that these guys come with, and having gone through the system. And you touched upon this earlier, where you mentioned that swimming has 37 golds and over 110 medals on offer overall. What needs to change or improve to make India better in swimming competitions at the Olympics? We have touched upon these different factors across the conversation, but I'd love to have an overall view of what needs to change or improve for us to get better, because there are a lot of medals on offer in that sport.
So what I do, encourage people to focus on, we see a lot of swimming pools being built, but because while you don't necessarily need a swimming pool, there's a lot of open water as well where you can swim. But when you want to start fine tuning towards, competitive swimming, then the field of play, as I would like to highlight, is becomes more important, and the quality
Yeah.
of field of play. So very often I find that we build these infrastructure, we try to create certain, we cut corners, but we try to create some basic hole in the ground infrastructure for high performance swimming, but there are no swimmers. And the pools
Yeah.
more often are underutilized and empty. So the first focus, if I have to encourage, is the focus on creating an environment or creating facilities that encourage the non-swimmers to start engaging with the water and enjoying the water. That's the first thing. I mean, and that's where the majority of the Indian population is. So I feel that's the first starting point. Create safe, comfortable spaces where children and adults can come together as a family and enjoy the water, even if they do not know how to swim. So these are the non-swimmers. Then, as you get people to start enjoying the water, and then you start pushing them or encouraging them to learn, and then having good quality people and programs to be able to help in them learning the right skills over a period of time. And once that is in place, you then create the infrastructure and the space for people to then swim for life, right? So it's a three-step progression. We often jump steps. We often land up focusing on the third step, which happens by accident than a plan. So in most of the places that you look at, in whether it's Australia or the US or Europe, they first have many spaces, that recreational spaces that allows people to really enjoy engaging with the water at a very young age.
Yeah.
And that's how the progression should be. And that's my larger thing. So while we can keep focusing at the top end of things, I believe that unless we start changing our approach and really focusing on bringing the larger non-swimming segment to start loving the water, and then helping them learn to swim, and then keeping them in the sport,
Yeah.
the whole, whether it's the economics of it or whether it's the social impact of it from a drowning prevention perspective and a life skill context,
Yeah.
and then the performance angle of it, I think it will be a win-win from all these perspectives.
Yeah. I think it's a top funnel approach where more number of people need to get into the water for us to then, start expecting to perform better at the Olympics as well. So, sir, it's been really insightful to hear your perspective into sport and overall functioning of the sports ecosystem. So, thank you so much for taking out the time today. I really appreciate.
Thank you, Neeraj. I really enjoyed chatting with you as well, and good luck.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, that was a very insightful conversation with Hakim sir, who very clearly broke down the steps that India needs to take to progress in the sport of swimming. We take heart in the performance of Indian swimmers in Tokyo so far and look forward to a future where India not only participates but competes for medals in the sport of swimming. And that future is certainly accelerated by the work that Hakim sir is undertaking. As for other sports, let's quickly look at the highlights from Tokyo so far. PV Sindhu blitzed through the semi-final by winning both her group matches, the round of 16 as well as the quarter-final matches without dropping a single set. But in the semi-finals, she came up against the current world number 1 Tai Zuying of Chinese Taipei and lost in straight sets 21-18, 21-12. This defeat means she'll not be able to improve on her silver medal finish at Rio Olympics, but she still has a chance of winning the bronze medal at Tokyo. Maricom had a shock exit in the round of 16 at the hands of Ingrid Valencia of Colombia, losing the bout 3-2. The nation expected a medal in boxing, and while Maricom got knocked out, India will still get a medal courtesy of fine performance by Lovlina Borgohain. The 23-year-old has beaten off some strong competition on her way to the semi-finals and has assured herself and India a medal in boxing. In the history of the Olympics, the most successful hockey team is India's men's hockey team with 8 gold medals to their name. But they have been lost in obscurity over the past few years and they went into Tokyo to change that status. While the men's team had a demoralizing 7-1 defeat against Australia, they won all their remaining group stage matches convincingly and booked a quarterfinal clash against Great Britain. The women's hockey team started the campaign with 3 straight defeats and were on course to get knocked out early. But they had a miraculous return to form and they won remaining 2 group stage matches and have booked a quarterfinal clash against strong favorites Australia. For India, the highlight of the athletics action so far is Kamalpreet Kaur's huge discus throw of 64 meters that booked the finals berth for her. She was one of the only 2 out of the 31 athletes to get an automatic qualification for the finals. There's some really exciting clashes ahead of us with athletics in full swing, wrestling about to kick off, and PV Sindhu and Lovlina fighting for medals. So let's continue cheering for Team India. Until the next time, this is your host Neeraj Mulani signing off.